Welcome to Soft Talk. The picture on my background is that of a stream called Badi Ghat. It means the literal translation is a big stream. This stream drains into the Rudra Bedi. It's another river and which ultimately drains into the Kali Gandaki river system. Let's talk a bit about the way of life of people in this region. This picture is from Gulmi district. People in my hometown, in my home district, worship trees, rivers, rivulets, even boulders, stones and boulders as gods. They worship, they find God in the fig tree, the banyan tree, or many other vegetations also. In the stones also, they just worship God. They see it all as the manifestation of the one and the only Almighty. So nature is their God. The nature is their goddess. The skies, the stars, the mountains, these all are different manifestations of one force, one divine force, that is the Almighty. I was talking a bit about the Rudrabeni river. On the banks of the Rudrabeni and the Kali Gandaki in Reedi district and some other parts are found these sacred stones. They are called the Shaligram. These pebbles, ammonites, they have these imprints of ancient sea creatures. They form different kind of designs carved into those stones, and we the people of that region in particular worship those stones as sacred. We take them as manifestations of Lord Vishnu, even Lord Shiva, and all those different kinds of deities. Most of the saligrams people worship as some form of Lord Vishnu, but different types of those ammonites people also worship as the manifestation of Lord Shiva and some other deities. So these stones are really sacred to us. But in recent days, these stones, the smuggling, this rampant mining and smuggling of the shaligram is going on unabated despite the presence of local, provincial, and federal governments. Personally, also, I have tried to draw attention to this rampant exploitation, in fact, smuggling of our precious natural resources, but these appeals have gone unheeded. This is not only a river. The Kali Gandaki for us is not only a river, it's in fact a lifeline. We have seen deaths on the banks of these rivers. We have bid our final farewell to our near and dear ones on the banks of these very rivers and rivulets. In fact, people born there, but living elsewhere in different parts of the world. They have many of them have this final wish. They want themselves consigned to flames on the banks of the Kali Gandaki because it's a sacred river. We consider it quite sacred. In fact, it is the cradle of uh, the most ancient form of life. So it has this Kali Gandaki river has special significance on different occasions like the New Year, in the month of Baishak, people from near and afar gather on the banks of Rudrabeni, the Kali Gandaki, to just take that holy bath. On the occasion of Maghe Sankranti, also a huge fair takes place. People perform different kinds of rituals. They take that holy bath. That kind of like it's wedded with a way of life of people living there. So it's not just a river, it's not just huge volumes of water uh, flowing through and draining into the Ganga river system ultimately. So it's a way of life, it's a lifeline for people. It's like uh, associated with their feelings, their everyday life. It's associated with their life and death. It's their cradle, if you will. So it bears a tremendous significance for the local people, for the local communities. So I have just walked along the banks of these rivers. I have just uh, sat on those stones and tried to divine into the meaning of life and death on those banks. I have spent some moments of my childhood with my mother and father. So it just strikes at the very core. I have seen like lamps, just oil-fed lamps on those leaf-made cups, just going down, flowing with that flow of the Kali Gandaki river and disappearing into the horizon. So it's just some childhood, some memories from the childhood, some memories from my youth. So it just makes for this lived experiences on those banks, having walked for hours on the banks of that river to reach my home somewhere in the hills. For many people out there, these boulders may seem just like that, the boulders. But for us, for those who worship nature, they are manifestations of different, different manifestations of the Almighty. For me personally, it is kind of this something. The river itself is a kind of stream of consciousness. I draw at least my what I call my poetic inspirations from this river, also from these words, from my like hometown, that is that seems quite away from the civilization, into the woods, but that is where my strength lies. That is from where I draw my inspiration for these outpourings. So these things mean quite a lot for the people from the hills. Let's talk, having just talked quite a lot, having set the background of this presentation, let's talk about the matter at hand today. It's about two huge boulders uh, from the banks of the Kaligandaki river in Magdi district. They are bound for Ayodhya, the supposed birthplace of Lord Rama, where they will be carved into like the images of Lord Ram and Sita. This has created uh, quite a controversy for obvious reasons. So let's talk about that controversy. I have recently written a piece on this thing, this sourcing of the two huge calcite and quartzite rocks from the banks of the Kaligandaki river in Magdi district, and what it means for Nepal and the Nepalese. Is it just two stones in a way smuggled into India, or it has further significance? I'll dwell on that in this presentation. So let's continue. Along a path strewn with rocks, let's take a walk. Let's begin with two huge pieces of Himalayan rocks that once adorned Thulo Kaligandaki Rural Municipality 6 in Magdi district. For local people, the two rocks lodged on a ravine above a stretch of the sacred Kaligandaki river were a familiar sight. But the eyes searching for the two giants will no longer be able to find them in their birthplace. Why on earth would anyone worry over two giant rocks? You see, the Nepalese are a peculiar being actually. These savages worship trees, mountains, rivers, boulders, and whatnot. As per government orders, the two quartzite and calcite rocks have marched on, initially for Janakpur, the birthplace of Sita Maya, goddess Sita, and the capital of King Janak. From there, they will be transferred to Ayodhya, with Nepal also footing the shipping cost of the precious gift, most probably. Per a report in the state-owned The Rising Nepal Delhi, the Gandaki province and the federal government had decided to send this gift in, in response to a correspondence from India. The initial plan was to carve the rocks into larger than life statues of Ram Lalla, lovely, cuddly Lord Ram in his childhood avatar, and Sita Maya, and install those statues at a Ram temple whose construction is going on in full swing. The plan is to complete the works and inaugurate the temple well before the 2024 elections. That may not exactly be a cakewalk for the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party. With the economy not in the pink of health, ours is not in the pink of health as well. In fact, ours is in a far worse condition. We are talking about the Indian economy at this context, so let's continue. With the economy not in the pink of health, the Indian National Congress resurging along with a formidable Aam Aadmi Party and a ghost from the past haunting it somewhat, Hindu votes will be quite crucial than ever before for the ruling party, that is the Bharatiya Janata Party, much to the inconvenience of the rocks bound for Ayodhya. Now, who cares about the inconvenience of the rocks? We are, in fact, out of this world, aren't we? There seems to be a little change of plan, much to the inconvenience of the rocks bound for Ayodhya. Plan B, if you will. Contrary to earlier reports, the Hindu reports, it has run a report titled Nepal Temple prepares to gift 350-ton stones to build Ram statue in Ayodhya. That was published on 17th of January. This Hindu report points that it's unclear if the rocks will be used to carve out the statues of Lord Rama and Goddess Sita. Also, there's incongruity about the weight of the rocks, some confusion about the weight of the rocks. While earlier reports in the Nepali and Indian media outlets suggested that the rocks weighed around 18 and 16 tons, the Hindu Daily states that the rocks have a combined weight of 350 tons. Is this because of some confusion about metric ton and ton? Or, sorry for this sore throat, or have these humble Himalayan rocks suddenly started possessing the divine power to change their shape and form, like Lord Hanuman, who could transform into an insect at Ashok Batika, a giant at the court of Ravan, and anything in between, as his rule demanded? Interestingly, the government decision to give away the rocks comes amid increased restrictions on the mining and extraction industry, thriving on rampant exploitation of Nepal's natural resources. The decision coincides with the anniversary of Dilip Mahato, a 24-year-old youth who was killed deliberately 3 years ago for protesting against rampant extraction of riverine materials in the Dhanusa district. Images of a group of apologists from Nepal, government officials, priests, experts, and politicians performing Chama Puja on the banks of the Kali Gandaki on the very day of a huge national tragedy, the Yeti Airlines plane crash that ended up killing all 72 on board. These images are now frozen in time, a mute spectator to the daylight revelry and rampant cross-border smuggling of the saligrams, which bear the imprints of some of the most ancient sea creatures. A Kali Gandaki, the Kali Gandaki river keeps flowing. What else can she do if our all powerful federal, provincial, and local governments keep mum? She cannot shout out loud and declare that the saligrams and all other treasures on the riverbed belong to the very cradle of the earliest forms of life. Or can she? Under the human scheme of things, all that the mighty river can do is tremble at the possibility of further exploitation of riverine resources in the context of great geopolitical games for regional and global supremacy. The images featuring a group of apologists on the banks of the Kaligandaki River It harks back to the olden times, the times when just Nepal witnessed the sellout of her lifelines. It just takes us back to the times when Nepal's rulers choose, chose to sell the country down the river for their petty gains, despite protests from the people, only to repent later. In modern times, acts of high treason have been continuing unabated since the Treaty of Sugauli 1816, with Nepal forced to part with pounds of flesh after each wave of political change through unjust and unequal legal instruments like the Nepal-India Peace and Friendship Treaty of the 1950s, the Gandak Agreement of 1959, the Kosi Agreement of 1966, and the much controversial Mahakali Treaty 1996, with the successor of the British Empire emerging as Nepal's neo-colonial master of sorts. Recent days they have seen a federal secular democratic republic of Nepal lose more of her lifelines. Lifelines like the Arun 3 river, almost losing this upper Karnali river and many other, the West Seti river, lifelines in different parts of the country. The West City is a lifeline for the far western region. The Arun 3, a lifeline for the eastern region of Nepal. The Arun 3 drains into the Saptakosi river system. It's in fact a contributory, and then the upper Karnali drains into the Karnali river system, which ultimately flows into India. Without control over these resources, how will the center, the provinces, the towns, and the villages survive, let alone prosper? Thanks to these instruments that are also the result of great geostrategic and geopolitical games for global and regional supremacy, Nepal, a non-aligned country used to minding her own business and charting her destiny on her own, has been living a neo-colonial nightmare. As India celebrates her 74th Republic Day, marking her transition to a republic after the end of the British rule, brought about by an untiring and inspiring struggle against colonialism and imperialism, her rulers would do well to opt for some soul searching, a serious soul searching vis a vis her relations with Nepal. This is because very often, after their fights against oppression and injustice, the champions of higher ideals like human rights and democracy end up becoming the forces that they detested so much. While describing our bilateral ties, there is a tendency to invoke the past, which is a contested territory anyway, and forget the present. While invoking divinities in the relations, there is a tendency to forget humanity. There is a tendency to forget that we are two fully sovereign countries, regardless of our respective size and importance in the Committee of Nations. While stressing the need to take them to new heights, there is a tendency, deliberate or otherwise, to forget ground realities in Nepal's sensibilities and sensitivities. Very often in bilateral fora, ordinary Nepalese feel that on both sides of the negotiating table are people representing the powerful neighbors' interests at the expense of Nepal. At every such forum, fears of another sellout grip Nepal, and this is not without reason. This is not without a base. As India takes immense pride in calling herself the world's largest democracy, the onus is on her to do some soul searching and create an environment of trust and add more elements of democracy in our bilateral relations. Let great celebrations of independence also offer us an opportunity to make way for more equal, just, and human ties. With this remark, I wrap up this edition of Soft Talk. Uh, we are trying to promote citizen journalism through this channel, so we request you to subscribe to this channel, comment on our presentation, and press that like button. Your support means quite a lot to us. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening.